Hey guys, after a week's vacation, shout out to Frank and Jamie in Arizona and my brother in Vegas. Eye of the Beholder is back reviewing the Dungeon & Dragon miniatures released by WOTC and WizKids in the 20 years between 2003 and 2023. We're about halfway through our Monstrosity minis, picking things back up in TMs, starting with Manticores. From Persian mythology and the OG Monster Manual, Manticores can kill you in a couple of ways. Most obvious are the incredibly tough claws and fangs, which, along with a spiked tail that can actually launch its spikes at its foes as deadly missiles, which are sometimes venomous as well. Evil through and through, these deadly carnivores will eat any creature unfortunate enough to cross its path, but it's most partial to, you guessed it, human flesh.
Our first Manticore comes to us in WotC's fourth set, 2004's Giants of Legend. Its most noticeable feature is its almost humanoid head and face, albeit lined with rows of razor-sharp teeth. Other than that, the rest of the mini is basically pedestrian, with a brownish-green body and a darker brown ridge running down the back to a tail that looks more fan than spike-like. Pose crouched low to the ground as it stalks its prey, wings unfurled and at the ready if needed. Score: Paint 12, Pose 13, Playability 13, Pizzazz 14, for a score of 52. Three years later, WotC tries again with this Manticore Sniper from 2007's Desert of Desolation set. This one is much more leonine in appearance, with a tawny body and dark mane surrounding a somewhat demonic face. Body detail is solid here. You can see the ribs protruding from the flanks, along with detailing on the dark wings, particularly the underside. One quibble: this mini is called a Manticore Sniper, so why is the tail completely hidden between the wings? It should be raised high above the torso, ready to launch a volley of missiles. Score: Paint 17, Pose 13, Playability 16, Pizzazz 19, for a score of 65. You knew WizKids' first Manticore mini would be airborne, which we get in 2016's Monster Menagerie set. Bad news first. It's not the most stable. The thin post does not do a good job holding up the sculpt. Move it about the playmat with caution. Other than that, it's terrific. Poses if pulling up to strike with its front claws. It also has the best facial features we've seen so far, a combination of ferocity and insanity. And it's also our first Manticore to really give us tail spikes. We also get spikes protruding from the lion's mane. Score: Paint 18, Pose 22, Playability 15, Pizzazz 23, for a score of 78. The Manticore was borrowed from Magic the Gathering, which adds a prismatic breath weapon that randomly fluctuates between acid, cold, fire, etc., to go along with the fangs, claws, and tail spike. Our only Manticore mini comes from 2020's Mythic Odyssey of Theros set, and I gotta admit, it's pretty cool. Also posed in mid-flight, on a much sturdier base, the pose has it banking sharply to starboard as it brings its breath weapon to bear, which looks like a combination of fire and lightning. The body is gray with a dark underbelly, which matches the wings. If you look closely enough, there's a bit of sparkle on them. I love it. Score: Paint 19, Pose 25, Playability 17, Pizzazz 25, for a score of 85.
From Clash of the Titans to Percy Jackson to basically almost every story set in mythological Greece, the Medusa is equally parts alluring and terrifying. Although most Medusa are excellent with bow and arrow, they are mostly known for their petrifying gaze, meaning it can turn one to stone. They are also known for their head covered in snakes, which are poisonous, by the way. Fun fact: Medusa sometimes choose to mate with humans, which gives a whole new definition to rock hard.
Our first Medusa comes in the first WotC set, 2003's Harbinger. The pose is awesome, the paint, not so much. She's posed crouched on her back foot, bow outstretched in her right hand, while her left is set as if an arrow has just been loosed. I also like how her aim is low, as if to wound her prey. That paint, though, ugh. Dark brown that basically hides all the details on the sculpt, to the point where facial features are basically non-existent. I know it's an early mini, but not acceptable, especially for a rare. Score: Paint 7, Pose 15, Playability 12, Pizzazz 10, for a score of 44. 4 years later, WOTC gives us this Medusa Archer in the Night Below set of 2007. Standing fully upright in the classic Archer pose, we get much better detailing on the body than the last one. Note how scaled her skin is, particularly on the back and legs. The detailing on her face and the snakes on her head are pretty good, if hard to make out. Again, the grayish color does no favors here. And while the black of her skirt doesn't offer much contrast, the tan of her bow definitely does. Score: Paint 12, Pose 15, Playability 15, Pizzazz 14, for a score of 56. Our final WOTC Medusa, also called a Medusa Archer, comes in 2009's Monster Manual Dangerous Delve set, and we finally get a bit of color on this one in her midnight blue cloak, which nicely offsets her scaled green skin. Here, the pose is more on guard. With her bow lowered but an arrow knocked, she can easily raise and loose if a shot is needed. And while again the coloring makes the face hard to see, it's actually pretty well done, as are the snakes. Score: Paint 13, Pose 15, Playability 16, Pizzazz 17, for a score of 61. WizKids' first Medusa miniature comes in 2016's Monster Menagerie set, and, frankly, it doesn't give off Medusa vibes. Smaller than the previous Medusa miniatures, she actually looks more like an attractive gray-skinned humanoid. Note the slim figure, the flat belly, and the attractive face. And where are the snakes for hair? She looks like she just came back from the salon. Let's give this mini the benefit of the doubt and assume she's casting an illusion. Score: Paint 15, Pose 12, Playability 13, Pizzazz 15, for a score of 55. Two years later, we get this Medusa mini in 2018's Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica, called an Undercity Gorgon, and I'm sure you've noticed, where's the head? Yes, this is how we received it in the box, no head. And you'd assume it was broken and the head would be loose in the box, but nope, this is how it came. It's a shame. Based on the coloring of the long dress, along with pics I've seen online, it's probably a really good mini, but as is, score: incomplete. Of course, we get a Medusa in 2020's Mythic Odyssey of Theros set, and it's a greater Medusa, a not very common, but easy to distinguish from your standard fare. They have a snake-like lower body rather than legs. We get some beautiful scaling on the lower body, while the upper body, raised up and clothed in a silvery gown over human skin, is stunning. And wow, those snake heads, fully radiating from around the crown of her head. I tried to count them, but failed. It's easily more than 20. When I think Medusa, this is what I expect. Score: 100. We actually get two greater Medusas in the Mythic Odyssey of Theros set, and this one's a named NPC to boot. Called Hythonia the Cruel. The blue and green patterned scales of her snake body are so well done, as is the golden breastplate. And let's talk about the head. I love how animated her snake hair is, while her eyes, white pinpoints within a blue face, gazes down imperiously at whoever dares enter her lair. And the stalagmites as a background work well too. Score: Paint 25, Pose 25, Playability 23, Pizzazz 25, for a score of 98. After the last two, our final Medusa from 2023's Sand and Stone set is a bit of a letdown. Again, we get more beautiful woman than terrifying monster, and apparently I have the worst luck with Medusa minis. Note how the back foot is detached from the base. Pose striding towards her target with a long sword trailing behind her. The dark brown of her dress offsets the gray of her skin, with her face focused on her target, ready to petrify her prey. Score: Paint 13, Pose 12, Playability 13, Pizzazz 13, for a score of 51.
Marrow originated in the abyss before migrating to the prime material plane, where they terrorize all aquatic life while worshipping their patron god, Demigorgon. Their preferred weapon is either a trident or a harpoon that they can skewer their prey on and pull them back by the attached rope. Even weaponless, they are formidable, with sharp claws and razor-like fangs.
WizKids gives us two Marrow variants in the 2017's Tomb of Annihilation set, one armed with a harpoon, while the second wields a trident. WizKids brilliantly uses a light blue translucent wave to pose the creatures in an upright position with their sinuous bodies anchored to the wave at the tail. Their blue bodies display a fine pattern of scales, particularly on the tail, while the white tips at the end of their facial tentacles help them stand out against the blue of the body. And the fact that they are uncommons makes it easier to get a rating band together, enhancing playability. Score: Paint 17, Pose 22, Playability 18, Pizzazz 20, for a score of 77. We get an even better Marrow 6 years later in 2023's Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen set. WizKids gives this one a bit of a glossy finish, which really makes the scaling on the body pop, not to mention the fins and spines running up and down the body. Also armed with a harpoon and wearing golden bracers, the face is a work of art, with the long white tentacles below the fang-lined maw. Really, the only thing preventing this from getting a 100 is playability. I'm just not sure how often you have aquatic adventures. Score: Paint 25, Pose 25, Playability 20, Pizzazz 25, for a score of 95.
From a DM standpoint, mimics are an essential part of the DM toolkit, not to mention they're just too much fun. They are intelligent enough to know that impersonating mundane objects such as chests and drawers will bring their prey to them, which they attack first with a powerful adhesive secretion to immobilize their prey, before beating it to death with their strong pseudopods sprouting from their bodies, along with a powerful bite from their tooth-filled maw. Fun fact, mimics have been known to bargain with passing adventuring parties, trading information for food.
Surprisingly enough, we never got a Mimic Mini from WOTC. Our first was this little guy from 2016's Monster Menagerie. Disguised in its most common form, a chest, the pose captures it as it just reveals its true nature, eyes opening on the lid, while the hinged top becomes a tooth-filled maw with a purple tongue lolling out, looking to capture its next meal. I mean, really, every DM is going to need at least one of these guys. Score: Paint 15, Pose 15, Playability 22, Pizzazz 17, for a score of 69. Four years later, we get this door mimic in the Fangs and Talons set of 2020. Another eminently playable miniature, with one side displaying a wooden door inside an archway, while the other revealing a huge open maw with very impressive set of fangs. The purple coloring of the inner mouth extends to the outstretched tongue. What a perfect surprise for that rogue PC when he tries to pick this lock. Score: Paint 17, Pose 17, Playability 18, Pizzazz 19, for a score of 71. But what if your PCs are in a natural cavern versus a work dungeon, you say? Well, meet this Stalagmite Mini from 2021's Snowbound set. It's actually called a spitting mimic, with a pair of purple tentacles protruding from the stone. The mouth, much smaller than our previous mimics, is also different with a red tongue protruding from it. All in all, not as impressive as our last or next mimics, but useful. Score: Paint 14, Pose 18, Playability 18, Pizzazz 13, for a score of 63. Now we're just getting silly. But who would suspect an innocent wash tub would turn into a ravenous wash tub mimic? From 2022's Fizzband's Treasury of Dragons, we get this delightful creature. The black-banded wood sides of the wash tub are perfect, and the splashing water of translucent blue gives this mimic a kinetic energy you usually don't expect from such a stationary creature. The extra long purple tongue is a nice touch, undulating out and upwards in search of prey. Score: Paint 25, Pose 21, Playability 18, Pizzazz 25, for a score of 89. Some mimics grow to enormous size, as evidenced in the second mimic from Fizzband's Treasury of Dragons, the Horde mimic. This one would be especially evil for the DM to spring on an adventuring party. Imagine they have just defeated a dragon and were helping themselves to his dragon horde when, bam! This guy rears up. With a body disguised as a mound of gold coins, its true nature is revealed by the absolutely huge open mouth, surrounded by gray teeth and orange eyes. The very long purple tongue is very cool as well, undulating upon itself as it seeks its next victim. Score: Paint 22, Pose 25, Playability 13, Pizzazz 23, for a score of 83. Our final mimic reaches into the realm of the absurd. Not that there's anything wrong with that. This mini answers the age-old question, where do PCs do their business? Imagine getting the call of nature, and you happen upon this convenient outhouse when, bam! Outhouse Mimic. From 2022's Mordenkainen Presents Monsters of the Multiverse set, the faded gray of the outhouse perfectly disguises the mini when the door is opened. Very cool, WizKids. Again, we get a very large mouth, a few orange eyes up top, and a long purple tongue. One encounter with this guy will ensure your PCs emulate the bear when the need arises. Score: Paint 18, Pose 15, Playability 13, Pizzazz 25, for a score of 71.
That's a pretty good mini to end things on. We'll pick this back up next week when we continue with the monstrous M's, starting with Minotaurs. As always, I appreciate all who take the time to watch my humble channel. Please feel free to like and comment, or even subscribe. I am the Beholder, signing off for now.